Welcome to Spirit Sessions, a view of the light, and big hugs to you wherever you are and whatever you're doing. And you're welcome here as part of the family. So come on in and enjoy us today. We have some of my special co-hosts with me today. We've got Rhonda Elliott, who's been here with me since the beginning. And we've got some freshness over here with Brittany Floyd. So we're glad to have Brittany here. And we have a wonderful guest today who's also an author, which means she is a great storyteller. And you know how I am with wanting to listen to great storytellers and the wisdom they have to share. But wait, first we're going to throw it over to Rhonda Elliott, who has a card for next week for us. Rhonda?
Hello. Thanks, Teresa. I pulled this card from the Sacred Forest in honor of our guest. And I just thought this would be great. And this one popped out. It's Raven Spirit, talking about truth. As you look up, you see a raven peering at you from a branch. It feels like he's gazing straight into your soul. He swoops down and lands on your hand. Amazingly, he begins to talk, telling you deeper truths of your life. He reminds you to focus on what is important and admonishes you to make choices in the life that honor your truth. The spirit of the raven says, the soul loves the truth. Find your truth. Speak your truth. Live your truth. Be fearless in your journey. Follow your inner guidance. Let go of what is not authentic and sincere in your life. Be a shining example for others. So that's a lovely card for this week for everybody to kind of get into. So, Teresa, I'd like to put it over, and could you introduce Susan to us? Because Susan hasn't been here for a while, but she was here. Maybe it was, well, I'm trying to remember, but it's been over a year. So
yeah, it's really been such a long time. And yeah, I don't always keep up with things on online and stuff. I close down in my little circle and stuff. So I don't always keep up like I want to. But Susan was on before because, oh my gosh, she would have the most wonderful picturesque posts with the most wonderful words that I could just sit there and it was like a treatment for myself, you know, like feel my spirit and stuff when I watched it. And so that's what I remembered. And then Susan did the thing I want everyone to do. She got a hold of me when she has some really neat things happening. Susan over here has completed a book, and right now she's just completed the audio version of that. And if you love to do dishes or housework and listen to books on audio, well, this is what she's done for us. So welcome, Susan. Come and tell us about this journey.
Thank you so much. I love that. You know, it's like we all kind of get caught in those domestic chores, yeah. Right? So I never thought about listening to an audio book. I want to thank you all for having me here, and you know, that I reached out to you, and my gosh, your show is so successful. I think I reached out last fall, right?
Yeah.
And you said, well, gosh, we don't have anything till February, yeah. And this is the soonest that you had. So congratulations to your show and for the longevity of it. And it's just, again, my honor to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, it's been quite the journey writing the book. I have never considered myself to be an author. I'm more of a soul reader, shamanic healing, those kinds of things. Still do that work, of course. You know, but the book just kind of found its way. My husband and I have been living in a motorhome for, gosh, over 12 years. And kind of the second or third year into the journey, I just sat down and started writing. And I'd write a couple paragraphs, put it away. Weeks, months would go by, pick it up. And it was kind of just this ongoing, you know, putting it together kind of thing. And it wasn't until 2-3 years ago, I think, that I finally just finished it. Again, set it aside, right? And it was interesting. My mother was still alive, and I asked her if she would like to edit it. And Mom broke out her red pen.
Oh, how sweet. Oh, my God.
And she edited it, and she said, you don't need to make any changes and whatnot, but she's quite the avid reader. So I took it to heart, the comma here, the then instead of a than, little things, right?
Yeah.
But she picked that all up, and again, book gets shelved. And so it was quite interesting. It's for sale on my website right now. It's $25. It's just an ebook. I would encourage you, if you want to get it, fine. But, again, we're this close to having it on Audible. Been on the studio, as I mentioned to the three of you, since April last year. Put the final touches on it in January. My producer's getting it all ready. So when it jumps, I'll let you know. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm also entertaining different publishers to get the book published. So this whole new journey for me, to tell you the truth. And I'm quite excited about it. It was a client of mine who actually bought the book, and she said, Susan, you should consider recording it. Again, you kind of put stuff over there. And I put it over there. And sometimes the light bulb takes a while to kind of go, and then it did. And it was an interesting tale. My brother lives back in Australia, but before he left, he wanted to get all the cousins together for lunch. And so we all got together for lunch. And I realized that Benjamin, my cousin, was talking about the studio, and he records meditations and this, that, and the next thing. Again, didn't sync, didn't gel. Finally, I pick up the phone and I'm like, hey. And so we started the process. And as I said, it's been a beautiful journey of learning, of reading, of slowing down. I tend to really go through it pretty fast. And so several of the chapters were done over and again. But everybody learns as we go along the path of life. And it's been a real learning circle, number one, to put myself out there in this way, just like it was wonderful to put myself out there when I became a soul reader. And when my teachers were telling me that's what I was to do, I'm like, I'm going to be laughed off the planet. I can't say that. I mean, this is back in the 80s and 90s, right? It was kind of this newer evolution of things. Anyway, it is what it is, and here I am. And so I'm going to read just a few little passages on the book. If people want it, questions and answers, that'll be fine. I want to preface it a little bit that, yes, I was a wilderness ranger for 15 years. Prior to that, my husband and I spent a tremendous amount of time in some of the remote wilderness areas you could find. And our expedition was all about, when you could count the last of the roadless areas, in the 70s, you're like, oh my God, the earth is the natural world is like, shrinking. And so remote areas, we'd be gone for 12 days at a time, come home for 3, back in, back in, back in, back in.
Wow. Gosh, why don't I have your life?
I know.
Well, I live in a motorhome. You can have that. No, it's the journey that we chose. At that point, we chose not to buy a piece of land because we felt a piece of land would hold us, and we wanted to explore all of the lands. This is mostly on the West Coast in this Klamasiski bioregion, straddling the Oregon, California coast. It's where I've worked, played most of my whole life. So up here in the Pacific Northwest is a little bit different, but I'm loving the energy here. You can feel the entities, the forest, the wind, wherever you go. The whole earth is sacred. And so, every spring there was a women's healing gathering that took place on this little piece of land called Trillium. And it was surrounded by the Dakapatiti Wilderness. The Dakapatiti was a Native American band. And I was honored to meet Aggie Baker Pilgrim, last living descendant of the Takelma Indians, Dakapatiti being a subspecies. Well, she would come out to the women's healing gathering, and it was every spring. And the beautiful thing was there was a teepee lodge set up, and the gathering would begin in the teepee around the campfire at night. and Aggie would share with us her wisdom of the land. There was a medicine wheel, and it was anointed with some magnificent crystals set up on a ridge, beautiful, magnificent. There were women that would lead hikes. I would lead hikes sometime. And one particular year, these two Native women came and did a sweat lodge. Well, who doesn't want to do a sweat lodge? And so that was a whole day process in that they wanted you to be present for the gathering of the rocks, which rocks were going to be used to be brought into the lodge, what wood was going to be used, and how it was sacredly done by rocks, wood. And a very small lodge, maybe 10 of us were in there. This is back in 1993. And they told us it was going to be a very hot lodge. Oh, you know, I remember being on my belly trying to lift the flap, trying to get some fresh air in, because it was hot. It was very, very hot. And after the first round, I was literally crawling out on my hands and knees, and Little Applegate River was right there. And you just kind of roll into the river.
Wow.
Until the bell would ring and the second round started. Well, the book is associated by those. We did 5 rounds in the lodge that day. The 5th round was a very precious, sacred round. They brought out the sacred pipe, be that as it may. So I wrote the book around that and the experiences that I had while in the lodge. And I also sort of dovetailed into the experiences I had alone as a wilderness ranger. When you're alone in the wild, your senses are heightened. You feel everything. I mean, I would be in there for days to weeks to months to years at a time. And I would always bow to the wilderness before going in. And I'd bow again, coming back out, like I wanted to keep all of this before going into the real wilderness, the city, right? You're like, driving the freeway home. You're like, okay, hold on to the of the backcountry. Lessons learned. So the book is around that. And so if you have questions, please ask them. I'm only going to read the first few pages of chapter 1. And then I've been guided to kind of read, I think I go back into chapter 5 and just read a paragraph there. But I was wondering where to start. And all week I've kind of just been opening the book and pulling out passages. And then it kind of dawned on me. It's like, remember Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, or it's always best to begin at the beginning. So I'm beginning at the beginning of chapter 1. And like I said, I'm just going to read the first 3 pages. If there's questions or whatever from there, we can proceed. I don't want to spend the whole hour reading the book. It's a very small book. It's 58 pages. Chapter 1, recording it in the studio, 15 minutes. Chapter 3 is kind of the heart of the book, if you will. I think it comes in about 34, 35 minutes of reading. The whole book said and done, you can probably listen to it a little over an hour. It's kind of like a lesson in each chapter, if I do say so myself. So if you do, if you are moved to read it, to purchase it, to listen to it, take your time. Let it sink in. I know I'm kind of blown away sometimes at what came through, to tell you the truth. And so, I've met a lot of several different entities while back there in the wild. And I talk about those a little bit in the book, but it just kind of comes up. There's my reading glasses. And so it just kind of takes off. So I'm just going to read first 3 pages of chapter 1. Chapter 1, the meeting of the elders. Why did you fill the bladder so full? Grandmother asked from afar. Well, what do you mean? I replied. You're dripping and wasting water everywhere. It's a waste of your time, a non-appreciation of what you do and what you gather. Slow down. Listen. Listen with your heart. When you show lack, you disrespect the gifts of earth, and water is precious. Beyond that, water is sacred. I understand, I said. Just to stop there, Grandmother Wisdom is one who I always felt very close to me at all times while in the backcountry. You know, I just felt her presence when on high ridges next to sacred springs. Just felt her. And this presence. And I coined her, you know, Grandmother Wisdom. So that's who you'll hear me having these conversations with in the book. Next time, take time. Listen with your heart, Grandmother said. And with that, she was gone. Love. Speak to me, Grandmother, of these things called joy. Grandmother said, where's your passion? Earth is alive. Listen, listen. Silence your mind, for it pulls you away, and yet it also attracts your peace. This is your time of listening, with a different peace in your heart. Release and always give thanks. In the stars are beauty. Come, the sun is setting. Let's gaze at the stars and listen to the ocean waves in the night sky. You will find new meaning in joy. Come, the time is now. Let us walk. Take off your shoes. The sands will tickle your joy. Grandmother, why do you always tell me to listen with my heart? I asked. Well, you were so caught up in finding wood, you didn't hear the ravens fly in. We had the raven card. This is beautiful. I saw them. Yes, but you did not hear them. Well, why do I want to hear them, Grandmother? So you get out of your head. Well, what do you mean by that? You saw the ravens and they brought you a message, but you kept gathering wood. Well, I didn't want the fire to go out. For that moment, the fire would not go out. You turned your back, and when you looked again, the ravens were gone. You did not hear them leave. When you listen from your heart, you see the lines fall into place. The messages become clear. You see your place in the universe. Why do I want to see my place in the universe? Because then and only then will your life make sense. Beyond what you see, you will feel and know. From each breath you take, to each wing you hear, to each leaf that falls, it all has purpose and meaning, all of it.
Wow.
If I can get a page to turn. Now I want to take you to the mountaintop. Come, the time is now, she said. I never knew then what she wanted me to know until now, after her lessons came and she left this earth. Now I know, and she did. She did show me the way, and I listened with my heart. Her lessons challenging and always full of wisdom that has to be felt and experienced with the body so the mind can know it's all about the heart. So just wanting to share that our beloved friend Teresa here just recently lost her father, and it's all about the heart. And there's several places where I moved to tears while reading this book. I touch on my father's own passing. He passed in 1990. I was 34 years old. So there's another entity in the book, Eagle Eyes. And, you know, I saw bald eagles everywhere all the time. And, you know, you'd be walking along and like, there's a beautiful bald eagle. So there's one place where Eagle Eyes kind of superimposes, and it's as though my father is talking to me through this, the gift of the eagle. And so, you know, bald eagles in general fly, birds, winged ones, they're incredibly precious. I'm so glad the card this morning was raven. I had several experiences, of course, in the backcountry with ravens. And even on my morning walks here on the property, you know, they'll call you out, right? You're like so lost in your head, like, oh, I got to get to the interview. And you're like, oh, just take a moment, breathe into the universe. And I find that walking first thing in the morning, of course, is wonderful. Walking anytime is wonderful. Wherever you go, I encourage you, get out in nature. I mean, if you live in the city, get out there. It's precious. It talks to you. The birds call you out. There's birds in the city. There's birds in the forest. There's magnificent energy, you know, everywhere. This time of year here, the owls come in, and, you know, it's beautiful to hear 2 or 3 different owls singing over themselves. And so I believe that the fact that we're talking about the winged ones, obviously we all have totems of wings and flying. And in the sweat lodge, I flew, and it was quite the incredible sensation. And, you know, to capture that in words is a whole different experience. But again, I took the lessons of my teachers, which, backing up a bit, in the middle of 1980s, I met my teachers, Warren and Ruby Newton. She's Ruby Venus, and he was Ma'ita, Moses, Abraham, Daniel, Elijah, and Ezekiel, all woven into one. I seem to find their names once again in the book by Grandmother Wisdom and Eagle Eyes. So their teachings continue to follow me. And it was wonderful that I met them in the 80s. And I had already got my Reiki initiations. You know, we're all kind of going through the motions and everything, but kind of kept putting it over there, right? It's like, I got 2 kids. I got to do this. Well, I got to do this for me was working for the Forest Service and being a wilderness ranger. First, I was a tree planter. When you have a 5-year-old, it's hard to plant trees and be a mother, you know. Then I became a hotshot firefighter. Now I have a 2nd child, and you know, blah blah blah. Getting into the wild, getting into the wild is what led me into doing the work I'm doing now. The messages that I got from my teachers then found their way decades past then into still having the book and, you know, writing it now. So I've never considered myself an author, but here it is. But like I said, it's not like something, it became more of a journal that I sat down, you know, and wrote a few pages here. And I was rather amazed when I finally decided, let's do this, you know, how the book kind of has a flow to it, right? I mean, and just weeks, months go by and just not even reread what I wrote, just take off and go again. And there's a bit of a beauty to that, I suppose, you know, spirit afoot, how it all manifests through us and whatnot. So are there any questions from anybody at this point? I mean, I could yell on this whole work, I suppose.
No, I find it's very wonderful. Go ahead, Brittany. Sorry.
Yeah. Now that we're on your topic of your book, what do you hope that people get from your book? Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
It does. It makes total sense. I hope that they get a sense of peace. You know, a sense of believing in yourself, right? Yeah. I say it all the time that we all have gifts to share. And, you know, they're not our gifts to keep. They're only ours to share. And we're all intuitive by nature. We're all light workers. We're all light beings. People might have been doing it before us, but that doesn't mean the message that's in your heart is the different message that's in my heart. Yes, it may be all the same message, but it all comes out of us in different ways. So if there's anything anybody gets from that book, it's to believe in the power of who you are, right? And to express yourself in whatever ways moves through you, and never compare yourself to anybody, because nobody's above us and nobody's below us. It's all the equal. The more that we hold hands and stick together, the more that we support one another. I mean, really, there's more people awakening on this planet than ever before. The golden age is here. The golden age is us. So, you know, I was slow. We can all be kind of slow, I suppose, and really wanting to put ourselves out there, and whatever that means, right? So whatever you might get from the book, and I hope it sort of tickles your fancy to inspire you in some way to do you, to be you, to put you out there in whatever healing modalities speak to you. If it's through a book, wonderful. Healing work is so needed right now. I mean, just to be able to receive Reiki. You know, years ago, I had this beautiful woman who worked a lot with crystals, like a lot of us do, and who also worked with essential oils. And so we did a trade. I feel like I got the better end of the deal, because her healing room just set a presence in itself, right? And going in there, and she channeled what we're now calling light language, right? Back in the 90s. And it was the most incredible experience, because you understand the vibration over the words. It's the vibration, the frequency that comes through. Well, at one point I opened my eyes and I have so many crystals laid on me. And she'd go here and put oil here, oil there. The whole room, I feel like I was levitating, just lifted up, you know. And afterwards she's like, you just stay here as long as you need be. And I'm like, I'm gonna leave. You know, I have to get up. And I don't know how long she let me absorb that, but eventually, you know, those stones had to come off.
Right.
And I eventually still just laid there before I left the bed. And, you know, she wasn't really necessarily putting herself out there. How our two paths crossed, I can't really remember. But that's the way the great mystery works. You don't need to remember. Spirit brings you to who you're ready for, and vice versa, right? And I believe a lot of the work I come to do is just help people step into their calling, step into their passion, right? So the book has kind of been a subspecies, if you will, to what I've been doing, or what I am moved here to do. And you know, it's a very small little book. It's 58 pages. It's 58 pages, you know, on 8 by 10. So if you fold it over, maybe it's a little over 100 pages. When I first started writing it, it sounded kind of like the book The Prophet, you know, where Arjuna, I mean, speak to us of yada yada, and this beautiful expose comes out. And the book kind of starts like that a little bit, perhaps, and then it just starts to flow. It just starts to flow. I start to really weave my experiences in of places I've been, teachings from everybody I'd gained from. And I don't know if that's answering your question, but I'm hoping the book just moves people to really step in. You know, don't step out. It's like it's kind of chaotic on the planet Earth right now. But I know Gaia's not going to let it all crumble down. Mother Earth has an energy of her own, as well we know, and she's taking care of us. And I know there's light beings out there working in the strata of the planet, the cosmic zone, right? And you can, we're all that. You know, you read about all this, you're like, wow. But that's who we are, right? That's what's sustaining us. That's why we're having this conversation today, just to encourage everybody to do who they do. If you're an artist, get your art out there. If you're a healer, get your healing work out there. Whatever you do, get it out there. It's needed. You know, the book, Everything We Needed to Learn, we learned in kindergarten. And I never got past the preface in that book because, you know, warm cookies and milk are good for the soul. Who needs to get past that, right? Look both ways before you cross. Okay, look both ways. Get the energy of the four corners, cross over. You know, the one that I remembered the most is hold hands and stick together. And that's what we're all here to do. Hold hands and stick together. And so we're the light. Yes.
I was going to ask you, like, you've been connected to nature probably all your life, I would take it.
Yeah.
Were you connected to spirit at the same time, or did your nature connection bring you to spirit? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first? Were you always connected to spirit, and nature was just the nearest thing you could get to right away? without
That's a very excellent question. Nature came first. I don't know that I was connecting it with spirit at the time. When my family moved from Portland, I was actually born up here. We moved to southeastern Oregon, a little town called Klamath Falls. And Mom and Dad bought this house. It was the last house on the block. Well, the block had 6 houses on it, and there was 2 lots before our house. So we sat out, you know, in this vast open field, and it was nice to have all that open space around. But I tell you, when I really started to connect was when I got to ride my bike to school one year.
Ooh, neat.
Whoa, yeah, it's a big one, right? You know, 5th grade, you're riding your bike to school. And at the end of the road, we call it a horseshoe because it came around like a horseshoe. There was like 6 houses here and 6 houses there and all this open space. And at the top of the horseshoe, there was a trail we called the Bumpity Trail because this was all pasture land. So the Bumpity Trail had these ditches and you could ride your bike and catch this air. So to start your day riding your bike to school, you know, and then feeling the independence of being at school and walking your bike up and going in. But Rhonda, probably this, excuse me, the spiritual connection, I really didn't put my finger on it. My brother had started to bring home these books, Carlos Castenada in the 1970s. Castaneda was an anthropologist professor at UCLA, and he was into plant medicine. And, you know, he went to Mexico and met a teacher, Don Juan. I remember standing on mountain bridges saying, I want to meet my Don Juan, which led me meeting Ruby and Warren, and still not kind of putting the connection together. But it was one of those books, several of those books, A Journey to Islam, the 3rd book. And I'm sure we've all had these experiences where you're reading something, it's like, I already know this. How is how do I know this? Still not really putting a spiritual connection around it, if you will, right? It's kind of like, here's the shaman in the forest. And it's still, you know, interesting. Klamath Falls was not a real community, but we had a lot of groovy things going on. And this lady, Alice's restaurant. Yes, we had an Alice's restaurant. And she had a speaker come who was a Reiki master. Never heard of it before, but decided I'd go, right? And it was a free talk the night before. And it was only a 2-day class. And her name was Barbara West. Everything she said, again, resonated. It was kind of like reading the Castaneda books. Wow, here she is she my Don Juan, right? I couldn't afford the money up front. She let me make payments. I tell you, to sit with a group and to learn Reiki was phenomenal. To be initiated is what really moved me. I'm being initiated. Something just really resonated with me in that. And then I felt I found my calling. If I was calling it spirit at that point, maybe even meeting with Warren and Ruby, I don't know that I was using the word spirit as much as it was the vibration, the feeling, but I was still putting it aside. I've got 2 kids to raise, you know, all the yada yaddies, that yaddy. And finally, you put yourself out there when you do. And on the note of putting yourself out there, when I finally made my first business card, it was like, it was magic. It was like, wow. Did I give away? No, but I had them.
Well, that matters, don't it?
Yeah. So we call Reiki the gateway drug to spirituality. That's what we always call it here.
Truly it is. And I'm so glad it's as popular as it is, right? It is the gateway. I mean, it really does help people to become themselves. And the beauty after the class was, you know, the teacher, she went back to Eugene, Oregon, and she's like encouraged us to share with one another. Well, that's kind of where it ended for me. I just was sharing it with the other people who were in the class, but not necessarily putting it out there. But it was quite interesting on that note. A friend of mine had just gone through a breakup, and she came over to the house one day. And I don't know that she knew that I did Reiki. I don't know that I was telling that many people. Again, not putting oneself out there, right? And everything in me just had her lay down on the floor. And I just started to put my hands on her and let those tears flow and just let it moves you, right? It's a force that moves through you, that engages that energy, that energetic force in another, and the magic happens. And it started to cinch up in my mind before my heart that it was okay to do this. Perhaps that's when I finally started to put spirituality around it. I was guided by our teachers to read all these different books. Maida gave me the book, the Bhagavad Gita, which I kind of got trapped in, Arjuna, the battle of the mind. Can I? Should I? And then I'm a Gemini, so add that on top of it, right? Intuition, reason, intuition. You can overthink it. But and that's okay. Think about it, only to let that guide you forward. I mean, to have open conversations like this where we're talking about spirituality, the light that upholds us, it's what's needed right now. You know, it's like we had this harmonic convergence back in the 80s. And I remember just wanting to be in the highest peak just to absorb the vibration. And, you know, we just had the alignment of the planets. I mean, how cool is that? I mean, here's our Earth mingling out there with these other, you know, planets just in this galaxy. And when we consider there's galaxies upon galaxies, we really got to expand out. So when you expand out and you come right back in, and the third rock from the sun is the rock we all decided to land upon, to remember these healing modalities that we are, to remember the light being that we are beyond the emotions of the physical body. Feel the emotions, get raw with them, and step through them. I mean, that's where the healing begins. That's why the on hands work is so important, because, you know, you create that energetic orb in your hands. But we are that energetic orb. When we touch it together, right? And when we touch it together and touch another, we're energizing, you know, the chakras, the orbs, the light being. We leave our physical presence for moments in time. That's why, you know, you don't want to leave the table, because it's like your body re-enters, or your light being, your soul re-enters, right? And you know, it's an awakening. And you know, awakening is a continual process. It's like we awaken to awaken again, to keep the process going until we're finally consciously aware of making our ascension. And I know we can all do that. We don't have to agree to death. We can agree to consciously leaving our body. Woo. Now, when you think about that, there's a lot to do. And it's holding hands and sticking together. It's by doing it with our sisters and our brothers that we get there. So it's a solo journey, but it's a solo journey of interacting with others to bring us to the place of who we are in our fullness, right? So we need each other. And that's where there's no competition. It's an honoring, right? Now, you know, we can all get caught in judgment, but that's the beauty of spirit. If I'm judging you, I'm judging myself. What is it about that person that's pulling me off my mark that I feel I have to judge? What is it within me that I'm still judging? What it always reflects back. It always reflects back. The meditation I did this morning was like the crown chakra being a mirror. And dust gets on the mirror, right? Judgment, whatever it is. So dust the mirror, right? Well, we have mirrors. That's my grandmother's dresser back there, the mirror. Yeah. You know, we dust it, you know, and it's really, we're dusting the mirror to keep it clear, you know, so we move past that, because, you know, it lowers our vibration when we judge, but when we see that the judge is us, we start to clear that up a little bit, so that we're not putting that vibration out. If we're putting it out, then we're bringing it forth. You know that what we put out, we call back. So it's a constant, you know, learning process and not judging what we're moving through. So we don't judge one another. I still kind of fall into the quagmire. I mean, that's probably our humanness. That's our mind engagement. You know, it's like, okay, I'm so proud to be a grandmother. And, you know, when we're babes, we're so close to source. We don't know anything, and yet we know everything. We're told we're this, we're that. And now we're this age and we're undoing the not. No, I'm not that. No, I'm this, right? And not always knowing what this is, but continually dusting, you know, and activating and stepping into who we really are. And it really doesn't need a title. You know, it's like soul reader. Well, that's a title. You know, shamanism. Well, that's a title. Buddhism, you know, that's a title. Buddha didn't want to be called or known as, he just showed us, you know, be still and know.
Right.
You know, I mean, I've got statues of Buddhas everywhere, you know, and they're just beautiful to gaze at because there's always that smile on the face, no matter what, inner contentment. So that's the journey. And for me, the journey to spirituality really was a physical journey of climbing very steep, arduous mountains. You know, what's the climb within that I'm making? What am I letting go of? How heavy is that pack today? What could I have not brought? Why do I need all this? I just need a sleeping bag, a tent, a stove, and a few things to live off of. And, you know, what really kind of brought me into studying anthropology myself was, well, I'm alone out here in the wilderness with all this gear and all this food that I need. If I didn't have this, how would I be surviving? You know, you start to learn about the wild edibles. That's when I started to be with Aggie more and learn about her cultural traditions, what they ate, when they ate it, the reverence that was given before any berry, root, or anything was harvested. Take this one, not that one, you know, and started to supplement. Well, let's pick the huckleberries today instead of bringing in the protein bar, right? But knowing that the huckleberries only bloom in the fall, but the strawberries bloom in the spring. And, you know, it's just sort of really wanting to interact and be with the land, be a part of the spirit of the land, because the land is our greatest teacher. And that was on top of all my journals for several years in the backcountry, that Mother Earth is our greatest teacher. And she is. So would I have traded anything I've done? No. Do I have much now? No. I have love. I have life lessons. You know, I have 2 grandchildren, and be still my heart. They teach me so much. You know, it's just incredible. In fact, my granddaughter, Cassia, sat at my desk here one day. And she turns and she goes, Grandma, it's all magic. She goes, it's all magic. You're magic. I'm magic. It's all magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? And you're like, okay. And then, you know, she was constantly calling me out about how self-conscious I am. You're like, oh, yes. Anyway, you leave yourself open and the universe teaches you. It reminds you of your innocence. And every day I say we all come from a source of trust and innocence. And we're learning to trust in our innocence.
Yeah, that's right. I love that. That's beautiful.
It's wonderful. Hey, Brittany, do you want to ask Susan a couple of our first questions? I know I just, you know, that I'll throw to you today. How's that?
Yeah, so the first question is, what is your favorite crystal that you are working with right now?
My favorite crystal is my unicorn crystal. It's maybe 3 inches tall. Found it at a farmer's market while I was looking for amethyst. It's got amethyst in it. I looked it up, and it's really for spiritual well-being along with other modalities. So oftentimes if I'm working with the client and me, Susan, gets in the way, and like, how am I to approach this, getting me out of the way, letting the spirit in, letting the spirit of them in, I pick up this crystal, right? As we've been talking, though, I've been holding on to, this is rose quartz. Kind of fits just magically in the palm of your hand. Yes, it's everywhere. But we're always talking to matters of the heart, no matter what, right? So rose quartz. So these are the two stones I've been working the most with.
I love it.
I love that.
Thank you.
Okay, and the second question is, if you could pick a theme song of your life right now, what would it be?
Well, so many theme songs have been right there. However, before I do my yoga each morning, as I'm putting on my yoga clothes, I'm listening to Jenny Lewis, Psychos, and Life is a Journey, you know, and it just gets me dancing. It just sets the tone that no matter what I'm holding on to or needing to dance, right? I encourage everybody to put on music and dance no matter what time of day. Just move your body, right? Because I was doing Dan Millman's energization exercises years ago, and I still incorporate a few of those in my yoga. And he at the end, he goes, just let your body move freely. So just let it move freely. And really that's what dance does. So that song for me is kind of how I start the day. Before I come on this day, I put that song.
I love it, and I agree. I agree that you should just keep on dancing. It's just something, even if you, especially when I'm alone. When I'm alone and I'm just in my own element, I just move my body all the time. It's great. Yes. It's great. Okay, and the last question that we have for you is: have you recently seen any UFO sightings or any extraterrestrial activities going on?
Well, it's very interesting living in the forest. I love to walk at night, and I'll take a flashlight, but I'll turn the flashlight off, because then you get into your body and you just start to trust your body wisdom to take you, and it will, right? Wow. And it was quite magical last half moon, not this half moon that's waxing full right now, but I live at the base of Mount Hood, which is a little over 11,000 feet in elevation. And the Sandy River is a glacier that I say, because it's running right behind us here. It's a glacier that feeds off that river. There's energy there. If I've actually seen any ships, sometimes in the night sky, I feel like I am, you know. For me, it's always about that energy of being out at night. It really helps you to see the light of the stars, the light of our soul. You know, we all have this darkness, but there's those lights. And, you know, it's magical to be out under the canopy of the forest to see the trees silhouetted, especially under the full moon. And that may not be answering your question specifically, but in the wee hours of the morning, the owls come out, and it's probably 3, 4, and they wake me up no matter what. And you'll hear it, one. And then way over here on the other side of the canyon, you'll hear another. And, you know, they say, well, owls are quite wise. And the beauty of the owl is when it flies, you can't hear it, right? The card this morning was the raven. To hear raven wings, it's so cool. Whoosh, whoosh. You don't hear an owl. You see them darting through. And, you know, the great gray is a pretty good sized owl. And the way it's so postured, it's doing yoga through the forest at night. You know, it's dodging and it's ebbing and it's flowing. And a lot of the books I've read on the note of aliens and spaceships, the Native Americans saw the light beings all the time. And they were tall. Of course, they're tall. Our light being is tall. I mean, our light, it's like 12 to 15 feet above us. I was coming in the house the other day because my healing room is up here. This is our son and daughter-in-law's house. My healing room's here. And I'm coming in the front porch and I'm trying to duck down so my light being can get in under the front porch and under the doorwell, right? But you know, it's knowing that we're more than we believe that we are, right? And you know, the Native Americans seeing these very tall light beings and wanting to learn everything from them that they possibly could. And, you know, we remember the Native Americans because of the way they lived so in harmony with the land. But we're all indigenous in our soul. Somewhere at some time, we also too did, you know, I've got some druid in me. Whew, you know, Stonehenge, you know, the Alice Well, all that. We all have that indigenous root in us. We remember the native because we're on this land, and they were the last ones still living here very harmoniously with it. And they share stories of seeing these light beings, these aliens. Extraterrestrial life has been here for all time. We shouldn't call it extraterrestrial. It's here. You know, they're watching over us. It's wonderful. I watched a documentary on Netflix. Can't remember what it's called. It's probably still on. It will blow your mind, right? Of the footages they have of the ships, different areas of the planet where they've seen them, how they feel they're living under the ocean, because where else could they be so totally, you know, hidden? You know, I mean, the concepts are incredible. And it just keeps expanding our mind, which expands our soul, to know that we're not here alone. You know, the vastness.
Thank God.
It's mind-boggling. You know, isn't it? It's mind-boggling. And so, if I've seen ships and or not, I've felt the presence of other entities, of other life forces.
Extra dimensional.
Right on. Yeah.
That's awesome. Susan, before we go, and thank you so much, because it's, I feel like a kinship to you, because I'm a forest girl. My forests are smaller, but still cool. And beautiful. My owls are different, but I have seen the great grays here when they come down from the north, and we do have bards all around us.
Beautiful.
I know. Those are associated with ships too. The owls are associated with ships.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And we've had a Mike McLennan. He talks about the association between owls and ships and all sorts of archetypes that they are. And they're like the crone's bird, right? The owl?
Yes.
Or the wisdom keeper's bird. Can you tell us where to find you again, and what's the best way to get in touch with you? I'm sure it would be lovely to have an in-person session with you, but we're not in Seattle. I mean, not in Portland. Sorry, not Seattle. Like not in Portland. So where would be the best place to get in contact with you? And do you do over the internet work as well?
Thank you. You can visit my website, www.shamanwalks.org. You can go on there and you can see the different things that I offer. I do a lot of work over the phone. A lot of people like email readings. I've got a reading this afternoon I'll be moving into. She prefers email because she likes to read it over and over again. Oftentimes,
thank you, Teresa. She does it too.
It's true. Yeah.
So, you know, at the website, you'll see suggested prices, what I ask, but I also always say that everything is sliding scale. This is about you and for you. So you know what your budget is better than I do, and I'm not affixed to prices. So if you say I can offer you this, perfect. You know, there's a sheet on there that you can kind of fill out, exchange emails. We can be in touch that way. I'm on social media, Facebook, Instagram. I'm probably on Facebook more. I recently opened one of those. What's it called? Blue Sky. It's kind of like the new platform, Sky Blue or something.
Blue Sky. Yeah.
I'm on there, but I'm not really on there yet. I haven't fully transferred over there yet. So I'm relatively easy to find. I will be letting the world know in some way. You know, when my book goes up on Audible, like I said, I'm meeting with publishers. I meet with one again tomorrow, hoping to have the book published maybe by May, by my birthday. Just projecting out there, one publisher said it's about a 2-month process to get it all said and done. So that's a different world to be entering into, right? And completely trusting intuition as I go along and who to do what with. But shamanwalks.org is my website. And yes, it's beautiful to do the healing work. It's beautiful to finally step into it. We're all about supporting one another. right? So I'm here to shine a light on your website, on your messages. Again, holding hands and sticking together to create this beautiful earth walk that we're all sharing together. And thank you for this today. I feel like I've just been blabbing all that.
That's what you're here for. We're not here to talk about us. We're here to talk with you, and we really enjoy that. It would be kind of counterproductive if we were talking about ourselves. So no, we really enjoy that. And have you got another book that you've started now?
I have started the second book. It's kind of along the same lines of what this is. I'm still talking with Grandmother Wisdom. However, she's left the body, right? And even in the first passage that I read there, she had already left, and I'm sort of capturing the message. I'm calling that book Walking in Two Worlds. I'm actually sort of dovetailing more of my real experiences as a wilderness ranger. Not so I didn't touch with them in this book. But the Walking in Two Worlds, though, is kind of what Ruby and Warren, Venus and Maita taught me, is kind of like when they were teaching me, I was a wilderness ranger. I was walking in these two worlds of spirituality, but physicality, and not really dovetailing them together until I started to channel different entities at a high mountain spring, at a beautiful mountain top, right? Even at Mount Shasta, Isis came through. Still walking in two worlds, though. And so it's kind of the story that we all are moving through. I do this, but I'm really over here doing more of this. You know, so it's bringing those two worlds together. And so I've only just kind of scratched at the surface. Since being in the studio. Spirit Walker is kind of my new project right now. But once the publishing starts, you know, it does just motivate me to sit down and write more. I mean, I journal every day, so the journaling now actually becomes
it'll manifest.
Yes.
Thanks again. Anybody else? Brittany, have you got any other words? I know I keep muting you because you got a feedback going on, so sorry.
No, it's okay. No, that was it. Thank you so much for coming on, Susan. I enjoyed your, I can't wait to get your book on Audible because I like to hear things too, so especially when I'm working. So I'm looking forward to it because that first little intro already reeled me in, so
yep,
I'm looking forward.
Perfect. Well, it's interesting because a lot of my clients and friends, you know, more people are listening to YouTube, to all these things. So that's a learning curve I've needed to come up into, right? So take the steps we take as we take them. I'm glad that you resonated with those first few passages. I'm glad that Spirit kind of guided me to start at the beginning, just read a few pages of chapter 1. And then, like I said, it's a really short read, but take your time with it. Let it talk to you. Let it open and activate the spirit of love of who you are. And I just want to close in a prayer of gratitude with hands on heart. Great Spirit, thank you for this time. Thank you for this sharing. Tears always come because they're tears of love. And we've opened doors of love today. We've flown out to the stars and back again. We've flown on the backs of the winged ones, knowing too that we can fly, knowing too that we're extraterrestrial, knowing too that there's so much more than our simple little brains can catch up to. But as Grandmother said, it's all about the heart. So we give thanks for the heart of the matter. Aho, namaste, selah.
Thank you so much. Stay with us afterwards, and we'll get it out.
Okay, thank you so much for our time today. I've really had a good time. Thank you.
Thanks.